Hi, welcome to Come Up Higher 2020. I'm your host, Shalina Steeson. I always wanted to talk to you guys this week about something I think is absolutely beautiful, and I'm so glad the Lord showed me this. I was reading, and the Lord brought the parable of the prodigal son to my heart. And I was asking him this week what he wanted to say to the church. And just yesterday, he basically energized and ignited my heart towards this very thing. He just dropped it in me while I was waiting on my friend to get to a cafe we were going to meet. Before she got there, I was like setting my heart just to just see what the Lord had for me that day, his daily bread for me. And as I was reading, it just, sometimes when you just get that aha moment, you just know. It's just like crystal clear in your mind and in your heart, in your spirit. And I had one of those moments yesterday, and I was just writing it down because I realized that there's just like this special anointing, this special presence that's over those moments. And it's not always whenever you go out of those moments that you still have that clearness and focus and understanding. So I wrote it down, everything that was coming to my mind. And last night and today, I feel like the Lord, I just been going around just without anything on, just silent, just receiving from him. And it's been absolutely just beautiful. And I want to share this with you guys this week. The Lord was speaking to me about the prodigal son. And the prodigal son is in Luke, the Gospel of Luke, in the 15th chapter. It starts with the 11th verse in the 15th chapter. And it's actually, Jesus is speaking several parables right after each other that are paralleling each other in the same type of meaning, the same type of emphasis on the ending result or the solution to what has happened. So I'll just read it to you, and then I'll start to tell you what he was starting to show me and what I've been learning about this, at least the historical context of it. Then he said, and I'm reading this in the New King James Version because I think that some of the versions, when you read this parable, has lost some of the meaning. So I will take you back into the Greek afterwards. Then he said, a certain man had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falls to me. So he divided to them his livelihood. And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together, journeyed to a far country, and there wasted his possessions with prodigal living. But when he had spent all, then there arose a severe famine in the land. And he began to be in want. Then he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into the fields to feed swine. And he would gladly have filled his stomach with the pods that the swine ate, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have bread enough to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven before you, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. But when he was still a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight, and am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, Bring out the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet, and bring the fatted calf here and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to be merry. Now his older son was in the field, and as he came and drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, My brother has come, and because he has received him safe and sound, your father has killed the fatted calf. But he was angry and would not go in. Therefore his father came out and pleaded with him. So he answered and said to his father, Lo, these many years I have been serving you. I never transgressed your commandment at any time, and yet you never gave me a young goat, that I might make merry with my friends. But as soon as this son of yours came, who has devoured your livelihood with harlotry, and killed the fatted calf for him. And he said to him, Son, you are always with me, and all that I have is yours. It was right that we should make merry and be glad, for your brother was dead and is alive again, and was lost and is found. So, I don't know what you guys think after this parable, but in just reading that as is, I began to interpret it by my own culture, which is a Western culture. I began to think, oh yeah, it's only right. We love our children. Of course we would accept them. No matter what they are doing, we would still accept them. But this is an Eastern culture. It is a culture, you read about the culture of the Eastern culture, especially in Oriental culture, in Asian culture, of honor and shame. And this is very much in this parable. And the Jews would have understood this culture of honor and shame. So now we go into that and we're painting this picture. So this father, he has this estate, and in the Jews and in that ancient Jewish time, you had a property. Because of the law of Moses, they never lost their property. They would gain it after the year of Jubilee, or just after the amount of time they would receive their property back. So this is a family estate that is passed down from generation to generation. So for the son, the younger son, to say, give me the portion of my goods. Okay, so to understand this, in the Jewish culture, you had the firstborn son received a double portion. So we understand, we've heard a lot of people say, I want a double portion. God, give me a double portion. But we don't understand that the double portion was reserved to the firstborn son, which receives double the amount of, if you were going to divide the inheritance, you would divide it in half. That's what we would naturally think. But the firstborn received a double portion, which means that he received, if there's only two, he received 2/3 of the amount of the inheritance, and the younger son would receive 1/3. And in that time, the sons could receive the inheritance while the father was alive, but usually they received it when he was dead. So the son is like, I don't want to wait anymore. I want to be able to live my life the way I want to live it. I want my inheritance. I want the portion of my inheritance. And I want it before you die. So I think I can handle this the way I want to, instead of like a respectful way, Father, if you give me a portion of my inheritance, and you see that I handle it well, then you could give me more of my inheritance. But instead he says, give it all to me. And he doesn't even say it in a respectful way. He said, give me. That's not a respectful way that you would speak to your father. And especially when you're telling him to give it to you before he dies. So it says, and not many days after, the younger son gathered all together. So it's just a few days later that he would have kind of made his father sell his portion of things, what would equal his portion. And to be able to sell it quickly, he would have to sell it at a discount. Because to sell things that quickly, you wouldn't sell it at its full value, at what things would actually cost. You would try to sell things cheaply or at a discount so that you could sell it quickly. So he liquidated maybe furniture, maybe different things. 'Cause at that time, they had animals, they had the property, they had clothing, like different things that would be of worth. They would sell those things at a discount so they could get the money quickly. So the son, he gets the money quickly, and then he journeys to a far-off country. And a far-off country at that time would actually represent a Gentile country. So somewhere the son is going, the younger son is going somewhere where no one knows him. And he can't, if he has in his heart to live however he wants to without any restrictions or anything, then he wouldn't want to go to a Jewish town, because then he still has that restriction of being a Jew. But in a far-off country, they let you act and be however you want to, and especially if you have the inheritance, they would just respect you because you had money. There would be a lot of people that would be being your friend on false terms because you were wealthy. So he lives this wasteful, unrestricted life. It actually, in the King James, it actually the Greek meaning is riot living, and that means unrestrained behavior of any sort, wastefully and luxuriously. So he's not wanting any restriction, and he's living this wasteful and unrestricted in any way type of life. So after he has used all of his money, and he's also established some connections in this place that he's been living, there's a famine that comes. And we don't understand so much famine in the Western cultures and stuff. But famine in that time, they would have understood it, because Israel has went through lots of famines. And we also read in history what happened in times of famine. In times of famine, people would first, in the time of famine, they would eat garbage. So they eat the leftovers of what they had from before. Things that are very cheap. They begin to fill their bellies. There's not much food to go around. And then after that, they would eat their sandals. And that's not very nutritious, but then they would do that because then they could go just barefoot. And many people at that time went barefoot. Only the wealthy would go around, or the ones who owned estates or had some type of inheritance would go with sandals. Or citizens of the country, like the Roman citizens and stuff. Then they would start to find like maybe chickens or something like small livestock to eat those. And that was their livelihood. So when they were starting to eat that, they were starting to eat their ways of making money. So then they would start to eat the animals. And then after they didn't have any animals left, then they would eat children. We read of the mothers who ate the afterbirth, and then they ate their children. Also with Solomon, when the two women came and said they were also in famine, and they said, okay, let's eat your child this time, and then we'll eat your child the next day. We cannot even comprehend what that would be like, but they were so hungry that they were willing to even eat their children. This is what famine is like in these places. So he became, he was so poor that he became a beggar. And the way that we understand this is that he didn't have anything. He didn't have any food or anything. So he joined himself to the citizen of the country. So citizens of that country, if you remember the soldier when he was speaking to Paul, Paul was saying, I'm a citizen. And the soldier was like, are you natural born, or I had to pay so much. This thing is of so much worth. To be a citizen of the country, you're either born to it, or you have to pay so much to be able to be a citizen of the Roman Empire. And so for him to join himself to a citizen is a wealthy man. Either he had to pay for his citizenship or he was born into it. That means his family would also be wealthy. It's probably someone he met during the time that he was living a luxurious life. But he's like, oh, yes, he was my friend during this time whenever I had lots of money and was very wealthy. Maybe he will take me in. Maybe he will give me a job. I can work for him. And the citizen, and it says he joined himself, and that joining, it actually means he joined himself like glue. He became like a beggar. And I've heard people talk about this type of joining, this type of glue, the way that people that are begging, they are like hanging on your legs. You can't get them off of you without like giving them something. And this is how he became to that citizen. So just to get him off of him, he says, you can feed the swine, and then you can eat the husks. And at that time, the swine, that was the lowest of the lowest job. Like it was the lowest in society, the very low. Feeding swine, and especially a Jewish boy or a Jewish man feeding swine, you were unclean. If you were with any of these unclean animals, you were unclean. And for you to eat husks, and when you look at that when you're looking at Strong's and going back and looking at the husks, it's actually a carob tree, the beans of a carob tree. It is the poorest of the poor that eats this type of bean from this tree. And this tree, this bean is so hard to digest. Humans can't digest it, but pigs can. So they would feed it to cows and pigs because they could digest it, and it was a very, very cheap type of food to give them that they could actually get nourishment from. But because humans can't digest it, you don't get nourishment from it, but you get the sense of almost like feeding yourself. So because you're not getting nourishment, you're slowly becoming malnutritioned and would eventually die if you did not have real food. So the poorest of the poor would have that, and he comes to himself. He's like, if I just continue to eat these beans from this carob tree, the husks from this tree, I will eventually die. Because you don't get any nutrition, you can't digest it. Even though you're putting something in your mouth, your body doesn't digest it. So he would eventually die if that's all he was eating. But pigs and cows can. So he comes to himself and he's like, wow, so when I come back, so in that culture, with the shame and honor culture, when he shamed his father so much to ask for the inheritance, when he left, some of the families would have had a funeral because it meant that son was dead to them. And that son had completely left the family. He was not a part of the family anymore. And so if the son came back, and the son knows this, if the son comes back, then in that culture, you would have to have restitution, which the father would come out. First, the prodigal son would come into the village or the town, and the townspeople would know him, and the children, the people, they would just like shame him so much. They would mock him, they would slap him, they would spit on him, and then he would request to see his father, and even sometimes they would go in and sue to see their father. Their father would come out and he would slap them publicly, or they would get a beating or something. And that meant he had to have restitution for what he did for the family. And then he had to pay back. Before he could be reconciled, which is made like there was nothing that happened, he had to pay back. So he would maybe become a slave or a hired servant to pay back what he had taken from the family and the family estate. But the father was on the roof, and in those times the houses and stuff, they had the roofs that they could go up on top and they could see in long distances in those places. And he was up on top of the roof and he was looking in that direction. The father Okay, this is an Oriental, Middle Eastern father. He has a robe on. He has these long robes that go down to the very sandals. And he runs. And this running that he does, it's actually running a race. It means he exerts himself of all his effort. He picks up his robe to be able to run quickly before he even gets into the town. He sees his son, that he's in these rags, and he's looks probably super skinny. He's malnutritioned and everything, and he's walking back with his head held low. And the father sees this is his son, and he runs before any of the townspeople can see that he's coming back, and mocks him and tries to show him dishonor in any way, because he dishonored the whole town when he did that. The father runs, and when he embraces him, because first the son is prepared that the father is going to slap him. The father is going to show him that he's going to have to show this restitution. But he runs, and he falls on his neck, and he kisses him, and it means he kisses him many, many times, a lot. And this is a sign of full reconciliation, full forgiveness, when he's kissing him many, many times. So it is a sign of this lavish love this father has, and it is humiliating for the father to run the way he did, showing his legs. It is shameful for a man of his stature to run and show his legs in that type of way, to be out of breath in that type of way, and take away his pride. And it's humiliating for the father to do this. But he shows full reconciliation by the way that he treats his son. And so he grabs the robe. He tells the servants to go get his best robe. This best robe would have been reserved for the firstborn son's wedding, some special occasions. He didn't wear it very often. So he puts the robe on his shoulders. And this son, he didn't wash himself up. He didn't appear clean. He was dirty. He was smelly. He was like his jaws were probably sunken in so much. His hair stinking and matted. He put it around him anyway. His best robe. Then he takes a ring, and this is a signet ring. This is the father uses this ring to stamp and to show the authority of his estate, to show the authority of who he is, and he puts it on his son's hand. Even though he showed himself to be wasteful, and he showed himself to be not trustworthy, to have authority, to have power, to have dignity, he still puts it on his finger. And in this time, only the father and the sons would have worn sandals. But he tells him, when his son is wanting to be a hired servant, and that means no relationship to the family. If he has to be a slave, he would still be into the family, because he would serve the family. He would be a part of the household. But he has to be a hired servant, and hired servants went into the center of the town, and they were paid like minimum wage, the minimum wage that they could receive. They were paid this minimum wage just to get the food that they would have every single day. And they put themselves out there every single day for someone to hire them so that they would get just this minimum wage to be able to have food for their table. And that is why the son said that even the hired workers have bread and enough to spare. So why am I eating these beans of this carob tree when I could have bread and even have something left over? Maybe I could just start gathering up wages to pay my dad back. But he can't imagine that he'd be brought into the family, even asking to be a slave of his father. So the father, he says, and kill the fatted calf. The fatted calf is reserved for joyous occasions, for let's say the firstborn son's wedding, this fatted calf, it would feed 200 to 300 people. And the father says, kill the fatted calves and have a huge party that the whole town can join in my joy. Not that the son was deserving, but that the father was so joyous and wanted to show the whole town that he was forgiven, that there was full reconciliation, full forgiveness, and that all should treat him as he is his son. He's showing full reconciliation. There's no restitution. The townspeople should accept him as if nothing ever happened, as if he was the one that they had known from before, that would still be given honor in the family and no shame whatsoever. So then he says, when he says he's dead, that son would have been dead to the family. So in his eyes, he was dead. But then he was alive because he returned. He came home. And he is alive again. He is back into this closeness, this intimate place with the Father, full reconciliation, as if nothing ever happened, as if he never wasted his inheritance, as if he never lived this life that was idolatrous, that had other lovers, that he lived. It says harlotry, but even in that time, harlotry would also be living as if you had other gods, other desires and passions that was not the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It was as if you had other foreign gods that you was living bound to, cleaving into. So the older son, he returns. And I know this is getting pretty long. Maybe I got to do 2 parts or something. But so the son, he returns and he's like, what is going on? He doesn't even know the son has returned. So it shows there's a lack of connection there because the father doesn't get one of the servants to go get his older son. If there was this close connection, the father would have wanted to share in the joy with his older son. But because the son was just doing his own thing, the father respected that and gave him his own will, basically. So he asked the servant, what's happening? And the son, he becomes angry when he understands there's full reconciliation. There's no restitution. Why doesn't this younger son pay for what he has done? And he becomes angry. He won't go in. So the father, he comes out and he's like, hey. And the younger son is like, he's speaking his heart. He's like, hey, I have served you in obedience. I have served you, did everything you asked for, and I can't even have this type of party for myself. And the father, he also responds in this gentle and loving way to the older son that doesn't have almost any connection with him, with his heart. He says, my child, and it's teknon, which teknon is actually my child, which is an affectionate address to him. My child, it means they're in bonds of love. And that's how the father is speaking to the older son. And he says he was dead and he's alive again. He was lost and now he's found. And this parable is left open. And in the ways that Jesus did and the parables were done in that time, the parables would parallel each other. So they would explain each other. So earlier you had the lost sheep and the shepherd finding the sheep and then having this elaborate party. Then you had the widow that was finding, or the woman that was finding the lost coin, and then she finds it and then she invites everyone to have this amazing party. And then further on you have just more parables that are showing servants that are mad because, or showing an unjustness and no grace for maybe someone has done them wrong or has been living, like you have the parable where you have the workers in the vineyard, and then they kill the servants, they kill even the son, and then the father comes and kills them and gives them back, gives the vineyard to all the workers and the people that are on the outskirts. So you see that Jesus is saying, it's up to you. He's speaking affectionately. Who is this son? Who is the son? The younger son. Well, that is all the sinners, the tax collectors, everyone that has sinned and lived just in their own will, wanting to do their own thing, not wanting to have any restrictions on themselves, and not wanting to have any of this consciousness bind them in any way, to be restricted in any way. It is a people that want to live unrestricted lives, doing it on their own terms, their own way. And the older son, he is the Pharisees, the Sadducees, all the ones that have the law and say that they need to pay for what they've done. They're sinners, and they're wasting away their life. And how can you give them this grace and mercy? How could you give it to them? They don't deserve it. And the Father, he is Jesus. Jesus says, when you see me, you've seen the Father. So in one way, you can see Jesus and you can see the Father in heaven. But we see that in the parallel parables, that the son that was sent, that the workers that they killed, was Jesus. He was leaving it up to the Pharisees and the Sadducees and speaking to them in this loving, affectionate way, saying, hey, you need to take them in. They were lost and now they are found. They're at this place that they need to be restored into this family. And he says, everything that I have is yours. And he's saying that to us now. He wants us to see all those that are out there that are living unrestricted lives. And finally, they say they're at this place of poverty in their souls and in their spirits. And they're saying, wow, with this person, I actually felt peace. And he's saying, don't turn them away. They were lost and now they are found. Show them how lavishly I love them, that there's no shame for them, that there is only honor, that I give them authority. I put my best robe of righteousness on their shoulders as if they have done nothing wrong. And the Father is saying that as well. He sees all those that are coming to him that have done all of these horrible, awful things, or even had other lovers on their heart, that have lived an unrestricted, unrestrained life. And he says, show them when they come home, when they come to me, when they come to their Father, when they come to Jesus, show them that lavished love. Show them their full righteousness. Give them this celebration. Give them this relationship as if nothing ever happened. Show them the authority that they have, that they can, that they are restored to sonship, that they have this affectionate bond of closeness, this intimacy together with their Father and with you. So there's many that are out there. There's many that are out there that need to be restored to this intimate place together with you. And many people are saying to these ones that have wandered because they wanted to follow their own desires and their own will. And many Christians are actually the ones that are turning them away. But Jesus and the Father, they say, welcome them back as if nothing ever happened. When they've fully been restored into this reconciliation as if nothing ever happened, then show them that. Celebrate that they have come home, that they were lost and now they found. We need to show that grace, that lavish love upon even the lost sons and daughters, the ones that have gone and strayed away and have come and returned. They are being restored to this oneness with Jesus, with the Father. They've been washed completely clean. And there are those that have never known their Father, but they're at this place of poverty in their souls, and they have seen the lives of those that are living together with the Father, with the Son, and they desire that. They feel the poverty of their own souls, poverty in their own spirits, and they want this place of just safety, this place of just wanting to be around safety. And we are to run as the Father ran out and fell on their necks. You are restored. You don't have to wash and make yourself appear clean. You can come as you are because the Father, Jesus, is looking far away and is wanting to get to you even before anyone notices that you are turning back. Jesus already sees you from afar, and he is running to you to show you that there is full reconciliation. There is as if you have never done anything wrong. He died and he paid the price that you could have such a restored, reconciled relationship with your Father again. We are to carry this we are ambassadors of the kingdom. We are carrying this message of full reconciliation to the world, and also to those that have that are sons, that are daughters, and have desired to go their own way with no restrictions, and just doing whatever they have with no restraints on them whatsoever. Eventually they will come to themselves and come back to what they had felt was that place of safety. And we are to bring them in with arms outstretched to them, saying, come. I know you as if there is nothing that has ever happened. And help us, Father, I just pray for you guys. Help us, Father, to see them as if nothing ever happened, to see them through your eyes of love, to not see the facts, to not be blinded by the facts that would cause us to have prejudices on our hearts, but help us, Father, to see them fully restored, fully reconciled to you. Help us to see through your eyes, to speak grace, and to restore them to the place of full sonship, full daughter, fully being daughters. And that sonship is fully in this intimate, bonded relationship. Help us to be to carry this message of full reconciliation to your sons and daughters that have went astray, and to those that have never known you, but you know them, and you are looking from very far away to say you are fully reconciled. You are fully restored to full relationship as if nothing ever happened. You have full authority. You are a son or daughter of the Most High God, and you have robes of white, no spots or anything. You are restored, and that, Father, I pray that they will just understand how much they have been forgiven, and that they will love much because they were forgiven much. Father, help us all to see how much we have been forgiven, how much we've been restored to this close bondness and relationship, that you have given us full authority. You have given us sandals if we are sons and daughters. We are your sons and daughters. Help us to understand this message of full reconciliation, of how much you humiliated yourself, Jesus, so that we could be fully restored to our Father, fully restored to sonship. I pray, Father, that you will watch over everyone that is out there and anyone that is in this place of just wanting to be living unrestrained lives. I pray that you will bring them to themselves, Father, that they will understand and have this revelation and understanding of the poverty of their souls and of their spirits, and that they will come to you how they are, and that they will receive that full, lavish love, that forgiveness, where you have washed them completely clean and made them whole. Thank you, Father. Bless your sons and daughters and help them to understand how much they have been forgiven, so that they may love much and show others this full, lavish love to their brothers and sisters. Worship you, Jesus. Thank you. Thank you, Father. Okay, guys. I pray that this revelation would just ignite in your hearts, and you will come to a whole nother level in your understanding of your forgiveness, but also the reconciliation of your brothers and sisters that are around you. That you will stretch out your arms to receive them, to not be an accuser of the brethren, to say all the facts back to them, but to say who the Father sees them as. I'll talk to you next week. Have a lovely week.